which you can find at the ABC, or if you'd like to just download a free copy off the internet on gospelministry.org, gospelministry with a Y.org. Just go into resources. Oh, and it's in the back already. You can pick up a disc with all the digital copies on there. And if you want to just read it on your computer, you can have it. But the full story of that hijacking and how I was accused of 15 crimes against the state and thrown into prison with the director of education for the conference because the military wanted the airplane for their own uses. And they didn't just do it to Seventh-day Adventists. They did it to 2 other evangelical organizations, too. They took their airplanes and stole them. And I found them painted with a different military paint job, and they had reported them stolen. And I said, they're sitting at the military base. And so God was good. And when I came out of prison, I had gray hairs for the first time. I was only about 25 years old. But so I felt like it kind of gave me a little bit of a right to wear those gray hairs. And so I admire people who have a lot of gray hair because they probably earned those too. Tonight we're going to tell experiences, having grown up in a mission field with my wife, having dedicated our life to mission service. We've only thought of ourselves as missionaries. That's who we were. That's our identity. Our children also, we had 2 girls. Then we adopted a baby boy, then in Mexico, then another older girl in Peru, then another baby boy in Peru also. So we have 5 children, and we used to have family Olympics, and since we have all the nationalities represented in our family, whenever somebody would win in our family, we'd stand them on the little stool, hang a medal around their neck, and sing their national anthem. So that's how we enjoy the diversity of nationalities. We collect passports of different nations. So in our family, we have different passports. And just Sunday, we added the Australian passport to our family. So we're happy to have the collection from the other side of the world. And like some people collect cups, we collect family members. We have a son-in-law from Trinidad and Tobago, and now one from Australia. We have a son-in-law that's U.S., but from Portuguese descent. And now we have 2 sons that are at the university, and we're praying for our future daughter-in-laws. We don't know who they are, but we hope they will be a different nationality. We're looking at our collection. What color passport would you like to have? But our experience has been international, and we've been working for the church in a variety of areas. God has given me the privilege of studying. When I went to college, I actually asked my union president what he wanted me to study, and he said, well, I can tell you what I don't want you to study. I said, what was that? I do not want you to study theology. But I want it to be like my father. Yes, but that was in your father's generation. We are graduating so many young people from theology today, we can't even hire them all. And we're certainly not going to give you a salary to come from the States to be a pastor when we have theology graduates that don't have a job. Well, I said, well, what do you want me to study then? He said, we need pilots, we need nurses, we need engineers, Okay. So I went back, I dropped theology, and I took nursing and aviation and eventually finished engineering. And I got my graduate degree in engineering and a graduate degree in business, and I taught down in the Caribbean Union, and I taught for Andrews University in their graduate business school. But my desire was always someday I want to finish what I really feel my calling was. I wanted to be a pastor someday. 15 years went by. 20 years went by. And then about 6 years ago, I went to work for the Venezuelan Union, and I had been in Guyana working, and they asked me to come there, and I said, I'll do it on the same basis I'm working in Guyana as ADRA director. I will do it as a volunteer because I'm living in the midst of an experiment with God. What is that? I only depend on God. I don't depend on salary anymore. Now, it's not wrong to have a salary, but I believe that all of us are going to be volunteers someday, and those of us that learn the lesson sooner will have less trauma in the end. So they said, we'll be happy to accept you as a volunteer. And they did. And after a couple years, the union president called me and said, I talked to the division president in Inter-America. We all recognize that you have been called to the ministry, and we want to ask you if you would be willing for us to ordain you into the ministry. And the Lord gives us the desires of our hearts, doesn't He? I never finished, so I'm not a theologian. But I am grateful for the opportunity to serve on God's ministerial staff and to be recognized by my administration to have been called into the ministry. So I'm very grateful. That was nearly 4 years ago. And so when I became a volunteer, I thought, well, they'll never ordain a volunteer. And God said, you want to bet? When you work for me, I can give you the desires of your heart. So tonight we're going to be talking about vision. We're going to be talking about lessons we learn. We're going to be talking about God giving us the desires of our heart. Did you know that the desires of your heart were planted there by God? You have dreams. Some of us are older. Some are younger. We all have dreams, and we all had dreams. And those dreams are planted there. Sometimes we take the steering wheel out of God's hand, and we want to live our life our way because we think we can get to our dreams better than God's way. I would like to tell you that if I would have done that in prison, I would have been there for 14 years. I would have just gotten out a few years ago. That's a long time to be put away from society. But because I told God in prison, I said, Lord, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just a missionary. How can I just have started my work and then suddenly be put in prison for the rest of my, the best years of my life, 14 years. And I started to negotiate with God. I said, Lord, if you get me out of here, I will love and serve you forever. Have you ever tried negotiating with God? Well, God made it very clear to me. He said, I don't negotiate. I have my children that are in prison in Cuba, in China, in Russia. And he said, they're still my children, but they're still in prison. But Lord, what am I supposed to do then? You only have two choices. You trust me and do what I tell you, or you do your own thing. No, Lord, I don't dare do my own thing. I know that your way is better. So I will trust you. Even if you stay here for 14 years, will you trust me? Yes. Even if I stay for 14 years, I would rather do it your way. Good. In that case, I want you to go offer your services to the prison director as a nurse. When I offered my services to the prison director, I did so not willingly. I just did it out of obedience because the least of my desires was, in my pain and depression, to go and serve somebody else. Why should I take care of somebody else's need when I myself had plenty of needs? But that's what God told me to do, so I just said, yes, sir. Isn't that what military people do when soldiers do when their general tells them something? Aren't we supposed to be soldiers? But our general tells us to do something, what do we say? Let me think about it, I'll tell you tomorrow. Right? And if I don't like it, I will do my own thing. But that's not what happens in the military. In the military, you just say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. And so I said, yes, sir, and I went to offer my services, and he put me to work seeing 50 patients a day. He said, you're our only doctor we have. I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm a nurse. That's okay, there's no doctors in prison, you're going to be our doctor from now on. I knew I should have taken more medicine. I said, he gave me a chair, a table, and a stethoscope. He said, I'm going to start lining up all the patients, 50 patients a day. I said, do you have any medical books? No. Do you have any medicines? No. Well, what am I supposed to do then? He said, talk to them, listen to them, make them feel better. So I'd smile and say, hello, good morning, how are you doing? And they would tell me, and I inside my mind I was saying, I don't even care if you feel bad. I don't even want to talk to you. But I'm doing this because God told me to. I felt like a ventriloquist talking. And they would smile, they would tell me they felt somebody cared, and I would write down their symptoms and tell them, well, you get some more sunshine. I'm already getting sunshine. Drink some more water. I'm already drinking water. That's all I eat. And finally, after several days, I realized I really did need a physician. And when I went to ask if there was any physicians, he said no. And then it occurred to me that I was a hospital administrator. I told him our hospital was filled with physicians that would be willing to come. He said, call on the phone. I had not yet talked to my wife. And so when I called on the phone, the hospital was 5 miles away from the nearest phone. But at that very moment when I called,